いろいろ心配ですよ。
挟まった。トペ行きたかったんですね今ね。
なんか薄みたくなっても。
As a wrestling fan for more than 10 years, I've always been aware of DDT Pro, or, more specifically, Dramatic Dream Team Pro Wrestling. To me, it was always sold as the promotion that was all comedy hijinks where people wrestled blow-up dolls and a monkey, a pint of beer, and a Hello Kitty doll were all champions at some point. But recently, among some of my contemporaries on YouTube, of the likes of Chris O'Brien and Joseph Montesillo, has grown steam as one of the quietly best promotions in Japan, offering a variety of said comedy matches along with the traditional Japanese style. It's a whole 25 years worth of history, and just jumping into it felt daunting as I didn't know what to expect. I feared going into the wrong match with the wrong competitors in the wrong context would turn me off from the promotion completely. That was, until I perused fellow YouTuber Chris O'Brien's recent Twitter thread of recommended matches in 2022, and this showed up. Chris Brookes versus Pokotan. Why was a lanky edgelord wrestling a fucking seal mascot? I didn't know, and truthfully I didn't care, cause I knew this was going to be the match to get me into DDT. And ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary buds, this match isn't just a perfect way to dip your toes into the madness that is DDT, it also stands as a perfect example of the way comedy can be used as a compelling narrative device in wrestling. And honestly, a pretty decent match to get you into wrestling as a whole. Yes, I am aware of the tall order presented in front of me, making you care about a giant cartoon seal that can wrestle. But hey, expecting pro wrestling to be normal when fire demons lob lightning bolts at people. Wrestlers have imaginary friends, and the most beloved group on your roster is a cult. Normal might as well be thrown into the Long Island Sound. Which is definitely something that happened on an episode of Monday Night Raw. Fans, non-fans, and everyone in between, let's dive deep and ask ourselves if we truly can stop worrying and learn to love DDT Pro. The match takes place in the famous combat sports arena of Kurikan Hall on January 3rd, 2022, under the name of the uniquely specific Special Start of DDT 25th Anniversary All Seats 3,000 Yen event. This special singles match is meant to portray Brookes as the veteran whom Pokotan is beneath, and Pokotan portrayed as the underdog in this match. Pokotan is out first. Now, let's get this out of the way. No, Pokotan is not an actual wrestling seal.
Well, why you boring me? I'm right!
However, let's get an even more obvious fact out of the way. The competitor in the suit is committing to an incredible level of performance art. Pro wrestling as a performance art is, in an ideal scenario, where wrestlers perform athletic and competitive feats, where the escalation of said athleticism and even violence is determined by how consensual the agreement between two or more individuals are. What normally dictates a good match is how well a wrestler can compete in the ring while telling a compelling narrative through mannerisms and emotions, and taking this into account, the competitor in the Pokotan suit is at an incredible disadvantage. Pokotan has to A. wrestle while limited by their suit, B. sell to react in a believable manner in said suit, and C. portray emotions without any facials to witness. Luckily, Pokotan already begins to set the story without the match even starting. As Pokotan comes out, they have visible confidence, cut by a humorous juxtaposition of Pokotan's head getting stuck in between the ropes. This moment does two things extremely well. First, it presents a physical limitation that Pokotan must overcome to secure a victory and what the opponent can capitalize and use against on them. And two, most importantly, it injects physical comedy to endear the audience to their side. Comedy in wrestling, while not essential, is often an easy way to gain audience approval as it translates to a fun-loving pure nature that leads to a deeper emotional investment once the match escalates into its deeper waters and the aggression mounts. Which lands Pokotan's role in the match as the adorable babyface, whom, despite their limitations, is eager to prove themselves and get the crowd behind them with their charm. Which leads us to... the difference between Pokotan and Chris Brookes couldn't be more night and day. Whereas Pokotan has charmed the audience as their underdog, standing up to their challenger, Brookes has easily turned the crowd against them, visibly sneering in disapproval and refusing to shake Pokotan's hand. As a heel in this match, Brookes plays the role of the straight man, but what makes his performance brilliant is that he never once treats Pokotan as anything other than an opponent that's beneath him, not because he's a seal, but because he's an inferior wrestler. In other words, he plays this match completely straight. For example, when comedy is injected into a segment like The New Day in WWE, or a match like Orange Cassidy in AEW as an example, the heel often refuses to play along and gets frustrated with the comedy, denying the moment and opting to act or wrestle seriously. But here, Brookes is standing in front of a giant smiling seal and it's like, well, I guess it's another Monday. It adds so much to the ridiculousness, as he obliges to lock up with the seal and offer a clean break when forcing them into the ropes. It feels completely normal to him to slap around a seal in front of hundreds of people where, to anyone else, it would be questionable and bizarre. And slap him around, he sure does. With wrestler dynamics and characteristics established and the way their roles add comedy, let's talk about how it adds to make a compelling narrative in the match itself. Pokotan is able to gain an upper hand early in the match, throwing off Chris Brookes with a variety of offense including a wicked slap, a cross chop, and a clothesline, sending Brookes rolling out of the ring. Overzealous, Pokotan attempts a suicide dive through the ring into Brookes, only for his unfortunate hindrance to bite him in his giant head. Because the match took time to establish this as a hindrance in the beginning, the audience is allowed to feel sympathy and worry for them, as not only is their momentum stunted, but Brookes capitalizes on viciously slapping him in the head and bashing it against the ring apron. I want to take time to also talk about how well the competitor in the Pokotan suit pantomimes pain. I talked earlier about how, due to having body language and facials limited by the mascot head and suit, the decision to exaggerate the motions as much as possible, flailing and stumbling, is done well to make up for being unable to verbally or visually wince or grimace in pain. Great performance art. Humor again is used to alleviate the violence and gain sympathy back to Poko, as Brookes tries to throw them back into the ring, but is unable to due to his comically large head, which Brookes viciously stomps and kicks at to get back into the ring. At this point, the head has been such an effective story piece where the limits of what can be done with it as a comedic and compelling story tool never feel overdone or out of place. It makes sense, where given into the rules and expectations of what would normally happen in a match like this moment is capitalized where the direction makes sure to take little notes of the dent inside Pokotan's head after such a vicious maneuver, highlighting how mean Brookes is as a competitor. What a bastard. Pokotan eventually tries to fight back with belabored punches and chops, and reverses an Irish whip to get Brookes into the corner, where my absolute favorite part of the match happens. So at this point of the video, I want you to remember everything I told you going into this match. Pokotan and his giant head being used as a comedic plot device, Brookes playing the match straight and opting to kick in said head, and the overall desire for Pokotan to get over that limitation for victory. Okay, good. Jesus Christ, where do I begin? Had this been any other match in any other promotion, this would have been a disaster, but because both competitors commit to the bit and tell the story the way they have, with Pokotan endearing himself to the crowd and Brookes working his head, the moment comes across as a wonderful piece of babyface sympathy and overall dark humor. Brookes sells this so well. Due to his commitment to treating this like a competitive exhibition, the sheer mortification on his face is just mwah. The direction also does a great job of letting the moment sink in as it focuses in on Pokotan's separated head and Brookes looking like he just committed murder. That's homicide in the 3rd degree. And of course, like you do, Pokotan casually puts on their head backwards and adjusts it to the front to the absolute horror of Chris Brookes, realizing this seal demon just came back from the dead and is coming back to finish the match. What can I say? It's bizarre. It's hilarious, it's dark, and somehow it all just works. This is DDT. This is the moment where I got it. Why this promotion is either loved or hated by the greater wrestling sphere. It's moments like this that if you made it this far and hated it, there is now nothing more for you to enjoy. But if you loved it, congratulations! You've become a new fan, and you're in for the ride of your life. Why? Why haven't I watched this promotion sooner? Anyway. After spitting on death itself, Pokotan gets back into the match by hitting a running headbutt, and finally, after it being the bane of the entire match, is able to overcome his giant head in the ropes to hit a preposterous dive onto Brookes, erupting the crowd into a sea of applause. This works so well because the entire match has been defined by his inability to hit a big move that has restricted him, unable for his head to fit through the ropes. But as the match nears its end, Pokotan hits their biggest offense yet, and the visual of them sailing through the air is just too funny for words. Building humor while disguising it as an obstacle for a storytelling tool helps gain crowd sympathy because when the switch gets flipped and the comedic wrestler in question gets serious, the crowd is able to buy into the desperation and desire for them to succeed. As the match descends into its deeper waters, Pokotan starts calling for the Rainmaker, even adding in a mini camera zoom out as Poko strikes the pose. Rainmaker, Kamagoye, and finishing with a sling blade onto Brookes. Why are we using New Japan moves in DDT? Man, you just saw a seal do a dive after being resurrected from death. Stop asking questions. Following Pokotan taking too much time to hit a top rope move, Brookes takes advantage by nailing a huge double arm suplex, following up with a massive drop kick off the top rope. Responding to the ref's count, Pokotan refuses defeat, egging on an increasingly frustrated Chris Brookes, who delivers a few kicks to the head before being caught by Pokotan, responding in the universal language of defiance. Pokotan, there are children watching, come on. Drop kick to Brookes' leg and a dragon screw drops Brookes, giving Pokotan the fire needed to finish the match, but is caught by a jumping knee and a double arm underhook lifting pile driver. Not satisfied with victory so soon, Brookes has one more move in his arsenal. And if you thought Brookes kicking Poko's head off earlier was bad, Brookes' double stomp off the top rope completely caves in the head of Pokotan, in a humorously brutal bit of selling, as the performer once again delivers a great pantomime in the Pokotan suit, convulsing in pain as the match is called a TKO in the favor of Chris Brookes. Brookes has bested Pokotan. Oh, and also this happens after the match. Fuck it, it's DDT Pro. So, what was the point of this video? Why, of all the videos to make on pro wrestling, where I could have easily talked and analyzed great matches from WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, or even New Japan, why of all those great matches and the many over the decades and decades, this was what I decided to make a video on first? Well, because comedy is hard. I don't think there's anything more subjective in entertainment than comedy, and in wrestling it's always had a stigma of never drawing money or always being considered lowbrow and insulting the audience's intelligence. Everyone on this platform is eager to talk about grueling title epics or tight technical masterpieces, as those matches will always deliver strong feelings and generate passionate debates, where matches like Chris Brookes vs. Pokotan are regulated to being merely fun. And while I don't think this match is anything you need to go out of your way to see or will end up in any match of the year lists, it is important in helping breaking the stigma in comedy and wrestling as an important tool to tell a story. I really don't think this match would have been as compelling the way it was if Pokotan didn't really sell you on his exaggerated mannerisms through physical limitations, and it wouldn't nearly be as compelling if Brookes didn't commit to the bit and meet Pokotan as an equal. The big spots and awful violence wouldn't have hit as hard if both competitors didn't commit to Pokotan's head as a storytelling tool, both for comedy and as a hindrance to get the crowd behind them. Comedy can be powerful, and in pro wrestling where the status quo is constantly being serious and going as long as possible, hitting bigger and bigger moves for longer and longer runtime, it's very refreshing to see something that's entertaining and easy to watch while also feeling complete in its emotional narrative. I'm glad I ran into this match, as it gave me a better context for not only what DDT Pro is capable of, but for what comedy and wrestling period can be capable of. And that's why Chris Brookes vs. Pokotan is funny, and weirdly compelling.